She posted, "When your boyfriend's apartment is so small you can barely breathe, weary face. My small apartment was a 2,000 square foot loft in Manhattan." I commented, "Feel free to find more space elsewhere." Then I changed the locks and put her boxes in a storage unit. When she realized elsewhere meant a studio in Queens she could actually afford. I, 31 male, am a commercial real estate appraiser. I know that sounds boring, and honestly it kind of is, but it pays well, and more relevant to this story, it means I understand what things cost. Specifically apartments. Specifically in Manhattan. So when my now ex-girlfriend publicly called my 2,000 square foot exposed brick loft so small you can barely breathe, something inside me just clicked off. Let me back up. I inherited some money from my grandfather when I was 24. Not life-changing generational wealth, but enough that combined with my salary and a favorable interest rate at the time, I was able to put a down payment on a loft in a converted warehouse building. 2,000 square feet, 12-foot ceilings, original hardwood floors, the kind of place that makes people go quiet for a second when they walk in for the first time. I'm not bragging. I got lucky with timing and I know it. But I also spent 3 years eating rice and beans to make those mortgage payments work. So it wasn't exactly handed to me on a platter either. My girlfriend moved in about 8 months ago. We've been dating for a year before that. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office, which is a perfectly fine job, but relevant because her take-home was about $2,800 a month. I never asked her to contribute to the mortgage. We split groceries, and she paid the electric bill, which in a loft that size runs maybe $140 in summer. That was it. She was essentially living in a Manhattan loft for $140 a month plus half the groceries. I want to be clear about something. I didn't hold this over her head. I never once said, "My apartment, my rules." We decorated together. She picked out the throw pillows, gray, from West Elm, $89 each, she bought for. She put her vintage record player by the windows. It felt like our place. I wanted it to feel like our place. The problem started around month 5 of her living there. Little comments at first. "Babe, don't you think we need a bigger closet?" We had a 6-foot custom built-in plus a freestanding wardrobe I bought specifically for her stuff. "This kitchen is so cramped." The kitchen had a 10-foot island with seating for 4. "I wish we had a second bathroom." We had a full bathroom and a half bath. In Manhattan, that's practically a penthouse feature. I brushed it off because people complain. I complain about stuff too. Whatever. Then she started doing this thing with her friends. They'd come over for wine nights, which was fine. I liked her friends mostly. And she'd do this performative side thing. Like they'd be sitting in the living room, which comfortably fit an L-shaped sectional, a coffee table, a bookshelf, and a reading nook by the window. And she'd go, "Sorry, it's so cramped in here, guys. We're making it work with what we have." And her friends would look around confused because the space was objectively massive. One of her friends actually pulled me aside once and said, "Your place is incredible." I don't know what she's talking about. That was the first time I thought something was genuinely off. But the post is what ended it. 3 Saturdays ago, I was at a work conference all day. Came home tired around 8 p.m., heated up leftovers, and was scrolling through my phone when I saw it. She'd posted a carousel of photos, our apartment, with a caption, "When your boyfriend's apartment is so small you can barely breathe, weary face. Manhattan living is not the flex y'all think it is. Someone give me a house in Connecticut, please, house with garden." The photos were taken at specific angles to make the rooms look small. Like she'd literally crouched in corners and shot toward the walls to mess with the depth perception. The living room, which again fits a sectional, looked like a closet in her photos. She'd piled stuff on the kitchen island to make it look cluttered when we both know it's normally clear. She staged it. The comments were full of her friends and random followers going, "OMG girl, you deserve better," and "dump him and find a man with a real apartment," and crying laughing emojis. 300-something likes. She had maybe 1,400 followers, so that's a pretty solid engagement rate. Sorry, the appraiser brain never turns off. She was in the bedroom on her phone. I walked in and said, "Hey, I saw your post." She didn't even look up. "Which one?" "The one where you're telling the internet my apartment, the one you live in for free, is too small for you." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, it's a joke." You're so sensitive. It doesn't read like a joke. And you doctor the photos. I didn't doctor anything. I just took pictures. You angled them to make the rooms look smaller than they are. The kitchen island has stuff piled on it. That's never there. You moved the coat rack in front of the living room window to block the depth. She finally looked up. Okay, detective. Sorry my aesthetic didn't match your floor plan. I stared at her for about 5 seconds. Then I said the thing that apparently started a war. Feel free to find more space elsewhere. She laughed. Actually laughed. What? I'm serious. If this apartment isn't good enough for you, go find one that is. You're breaking up with me over an Instagram post? I'm telling you that if you genuinely believe this place is too small, you should find something bigger. I won't stop you. She sat up. You're being ridiculous. Maybe, but take the post down. No. Okay then. I grabbed my laptop and went to the living room. She came out 20 minutes later acting like nothing happened. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I was being dramatic. I just didn't want to be near her. The next morning, a Sunday, she went to brunch with her friends. The post was still up. While she was gone, I called a locksmith. Now before anyone says, you can't just lock someone out. You're right, and I didn't. Not technically. She wasn't on a lease. She had no mail coming to my address. She'd never updated her address from her old apartment, which I realized in hindsight was convenient for her, but also convenient for me now. She had no legal tenant status. I consulted with a lawyer friend of mine over text that morning, and he confirmed that in my state, given the circumstances, no lease, no mail, under a year of residence, no formal rental agreement, she was legally a guest, an extended house guest. I could ask her to leave and give her reasonable time to collect her things. The locksmith came and changed both locks in about 40 minutes. Cost me $380 for 2 high-security deadbolts. Worth every penny. Then I very carefully, very respectfully packed her belongings into boxes. Her clothes, her books, her West Elm pillows, her record player, her skincare stuff in the bathroom, everything. I even wrapped the fragile stuff in bubble wrap. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was being efficient. I rented a storage unit nearby, a climate-controlled 10 by 10, which ran about $280 a month, and moved all 14 boxes there in 2 trips with a hand truck I borrowed from my building super. Sent her a text at 2:47 p.m. Hey, I've packed your things and put them in a storage unit. The first month is covered. The unit number and access code are below. I've changed the locks. I think this is the cleanest way to do this. I wish you well. 11 minutes of silence. Then my phone started vibrating like it was trying to escape my hand. Are you serious right now? You packed my stuff? You changed the locks? I live there. This is illegal. I'm calling the cops. I replied once. You don't live here. You were a guest. Your belongings are safe in climate-controlled storage, and I've paid the first month. I'm sorry it came to this. She called the cops. They came to my building. 2 officers. I showed them the lease, my name only. Showed them that she had no mail on my address, no renter's agreement, nothing. The officers were professional, but I could tell one of them was looking at me like I was a jerk. He asked if I'd given her any of her belongings. I showed him the storage unit receipt and the text I sent with the access code. He told me there wasn't much they could do since she had no legal claim to residency, but he strongly suggested I keep everything documented. They left. She blew up my phone for the rest of the day. I muted her. Update 1, 6 days later. Okay, y'all. So the aftermath of this has been something else. First, let me address the most common question. Yes, I'm sure she wasn't a legal tenant. I had my lawyer friend draft a short memo confirming the analysis. No lease, no rent payments to me, no utility bills in her name, the electric was in my name, she just Venmo'd me her portion, no mail forwarded to my address, residence under a year with no formal agreement. In my jurisdiction, she was classified as a licensee, someone with permission to be there that could be revoked. I revoked it. Legally clean. Now, the entitlement tour that followed. Monday morning, she showed up at my building with her mother. Her mother. This woman drove in from Long Island to advocate for her adult daughter's right to live in her ex-boyfriend's apartment rent-free. Let that marinate. The doorman, absolute legend, called up to let me know they were in the lobby requesting access. I told him I didn't want any visitors. He relayed the message. According to him, he told me later over a beer I bought him, her mother walked up to his desk and said, "Young man, my daughter has been living in that apartment for almost a year. She has rights. You need to let us up right now, or we're calling our lawyer." The doorman said, "Ma'am, only the leaseholder can authorize visitors. He's declined. I can't help you." Her mother apparently said, "This is what happens when men are allowed to have too much. They think they can throw women away like garbage." They left after about 25 minutes of sitting in the lobby huffing and puffing. Her mother posted her own thing on social media that evening, a long paragraph about how today's young men have no respect and how my daughter gave that boy everything and he threw her out like trash over a silly post. She tagged it with stuff like hashtag protect our daughters and hashtag narcissist ex-boyfriend. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Tuesday, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Turns out it was her older brother, who I'd met exactly twice, and both times he'd spent the entire evening talking about his fantasy football team. His message read, "Bro, you need to let my sister get her stuff properly and stop playing games. This isn't cool, and you know it." I replied, "Her stuff is in a climate-controlled storage unit. She has the access code. She can get it any time during business hours. I'm not playing any games." He wrote back, "You know what I mean. Let her back in the apartment. She's sleeping on our parents' couch, and my mom is losing it. That's not my problem. She publicly insulted my home. I asked her to find something better. She can. You're a real piece of work, dude." I didn't reply to that one. Wednesday is when things got genuinely annoying. She must have been talking to someone who knew a tiny bit about tenant law, because she sent me a very formal-sounding text that was clearly dictated by someone. "I am formally requesting reentry to the residence at my address, where I have been residing for approximately 8 months. Under New York state law, I may have established tenancy, and you are required to follow formal eviction proceedings." Except she couldn't actually file anything because, again, she had no documentation. No lease. No canceled rent checks. No utility bills. The Venmo payments she'd sent me were labeled groceries and electric, which matched our actual arrangement, not rent. She'd never received a single piece of mail there. She'd even bragged to friends about not having to deal with lease stuff because she lived with me. Screenshots of that brag were still on her social media from month 2 of her moving in. I know because her friend, the same one who told me my place was incredible, quietly sent me the screenshot with a note saying, "Just in case you need this." Her bluff went nowhere. But she wasn't done. Thursday, she pulled the pettiest move yet. She called my building management company and claimed I was running an illegal Airbnb out of my unit and that she had evidence I was renting rooms to strangers. I got a call from the property manager asking about it. I explained the situation, recent breakup. She was upset. It was retaliatory. He said he'd log it, but since I own the unit, condo, not rental, and there were no prior complaints, he wasn't concerned. But it meant I had to have a 20-minute conversation I shouldn't have needed to have. Friday. Oh, Friday. This is the one that really tested my patience. She texted me, "The storage unit is too far from my parents' house. I need you to move my stuff closer or deliver it to me." I stared at my phone for a full minute. The storage unit was a 12-minute subway ride from my apartment, which was where she'd been living. The fact that it was inconvenient relative to her parents' house in Long Island was, and I say this with my whole chest, not my concern. I replied, "The storage unit location is final. First month is paid through the 14th. After that, it's $280 per month. The access code hasn't changed." She responded, "So you're just going to let my stuff rot in there if I can't afford it?" I suggest picking it up before the 14th. I can't. I don't have a car, and my brother won't drive in. You can rent a U-Haul for about $30 plus mileage. You moved it there. You should move it out. I didn't respond. Saturday, her friend group tried a different angle. One of them, not the nice one, a different one who'd always been passive-aggressive toward me, sent me a DM that said, "Hey, I know things are messy right now, but she's really struggling. She can't afford first/last/security on a new place. She spent her savings on stuff for your apartment. The least you could do is help her get set up somewhere." This stuff for my apartment she was referring to? 4 throw pillows, $356, a scented candle subscription she got me for Christmas, $45 per quarter, and a set of kitchen towels, $28. Under $500 total in 14 months. Meanwhile, I'd covered her housing, most of her food, and her utilities in a Manhattan loft for 8 months. But sure, I owed her. I didn't respond to that either. Update 2. 2 weeks later. A lot of you predicted exactly what happened next. She found out what apartments actually cost. From what I pieced together through the mutual friend grapevine, and one very informative conversation with a nice friend from her group who was increasingly disgusted by the whole circus, my ex spent that first week and a half aggressively apartment hunting. She was absolutely positive she could find something way better than my loft, because in her mind, my place genuinely was small and she deserved more. Reality hit her like a freight train doing 90. At her income, roughly $2,800 per month after taxes, and with no savings to speak of, she'd spent most of it on clothes and going out, which I'd noticed but never commented on because it wasn't my money. Her options in Manhattan were literally zero. Not figuratively, literally zero. Even a studio in the most remote corners of the island starts at $2,200 and requires proof of income at 40x the monthly rent, which would mean she'd need to make $88,000 a year. She made about $38,000. So she looked in Brooklyn. Same problem, mostly. The neighborhoods she wanted, the trendy ones she'd post about, were $1,800 minimum for a room in a shared apartment. A room in someone else's apartment. With roommates. She ended up finding a studio in Queens. $1,650 a month. Roughly 340 square feet. No dishwasher. No laundry unit. A window that faced a brick wall. She had to get her mother to co-sign the lease because her income alone didn't qualify. 340 square feet. Down from 2,000. Because a post was more important than appreciation. The nice friend told me that when my ex walked into the studio for the first time after signing the lease, she stood in the middle of the room and didn't say anything for about 2 minutes. Then she said, "I can see the entire apartment from one spot." Because she could. That's what 340 square feet means. Now, I didn't celebrate this. I'm not a monster. I know how brutal the housing market is, and I know she's going to be spending over half her income on that studio, which leaves almost nothing for groceries, transportation, and the life she'd gotten used to living. That's a hard adjustment, and I wouldn't wish financial stress on anyone. But I also didn't cause it. She had a 2,000 square foot loft for the cost of an electric bill. She publicly mocked it. I gave her the opportunity to find something better. She found what her budget actually allowed. Now here's the part of this update that I really need to talk about because it's the most infuriating thing that happened throughout this entire situation. About a week after she signed the lease on the studio, I got a call from an unknown number. I normally don't pick up unknown numbers, but I was expecting a work call. It was her mother. "I want you to know that what you did to my daughter is going to follow you," she said. "No hello. Ma'am, I don't think we should be communicating. She is living in a box because of you." A grown woman living in a box. Does that make you proud? She's living in an apartment she can afford. I'm sorry it's not what she wanted. You know what you are? You're the kind of man who dangles nice things in front of a woman and then snatches them away the second she doesn't worship you for it. She publicly humiliated my home with doctored photos. I asked her to take it down. She refused. It was a joke. Young people joke on the internet. You destroyed her life over a joke. I think we have different definitions of joking. I want you to pay for her security deposit. Dead silence from me. Her security deposit on the new apartment. You forced her into this situation. The least you can do is pay her deposit. It's $1,650. Ma'am, no. Excuse me. No, I'm not paying for her apartment. I already paid for her apartment for 8 months. For essentially free. She chose to mock it publicly. I chose to end the arrangement. The consequences of her actions are not my financial responsibility. You are a cruel, selfish man. I'm sorry you feel that way. Please don't call me again. She called me again. 3 times that week. I blocked the number. But here's the real kicker. I found out, through the nice friend, who at this point was basically a double agent, that my ex hadn't actually moved all her stuff out of the storage unit. The paid month had ended. She'd grabbed about half her things and left the rest, because she didn't have room in the studio. So the storage unit was now accumulating charges at $280 a month on MY payment method because I'd set up the first month. I called the storage company immediately and removed my card. They told me they'd notify the renter on file, which was me, since I'd set it up, that the unit would go to auction after 90 days of non-payment. I transferred the account into her name using the contact info I had and sent her one final text. Storage unit account has been transferred to your name. My payment info has been removed. Please handle the remaining balance and your belongings. I wish you well. Her response: Are you serious? I can't afford $280 a month. You put my stuff there, you should pay for it. I did not respond. I changed my number the next day. Update 3. Final. 5 weeks later. All right, this is the last one. I've gotten a lot of messages asking for a final update, so here it is. The storage unit situation resolved itself in the most predictable way possible. She didn't pay. She couldn't afford to, between the $1,650 rent, her regular expenses, and a credit card balance the nice friend mentioned she'd been carrying for months. There was nothing left. After 90 days of non-payment, the storage company auctioned the contents. 14 boxes of clothes, books, throw pillows, a vintage record player, and what I'm told was a fairly nice collection of scarves. All gone. I don't know what it sold for. I don't care. She apparently called the storage company screaming about it. They told her she'd been notified 3 times, by mail to the address on the account, her parents' house, since I transferred it to her name and she used their address, and by email. Her mother had apparently been throwing away the notices, thinking they were junk mail. You truly cannot make this stuff up. Now, the bigger stuff. About 2 weeks after my last update, I got a letter, an actual physical letter, forwarded from my building's management office. It was from her attorney, a cease and desist demanding I compensate the complainant for losses incurred due to wrongful eviction, including but not limited to security deposit, moving costs, storage fees, and emotional distress. The total they were demanding? $8,200. I called my own lawyer. Not the friend this time. I retained an actual real estate attorney through my firm's legal referral network. Cost me a $500 retainer. She reviewed the letter, reviewed my documentation, and wrote a response that I genuinely want framed. The response, summarized in non-legal terms, basically said, your client was never a tenant, never paid rent, never had a lease, never received mail at the premises, publicly admitted on social media that she didn't have to deal with lease stuff, and voluntarily resided as a guest whose invitation was revoked with reasonable notice and accommodation. Storage of belongings, first month paid. The claim has no legal basis, and if pursued, we will countersue for defamation based on the public social media posts containing deliberately misleading images of the premises, as well as harassment based on the documented pattern of contact from the complainant and her family members. My lawyer told me she didn't expect to hear back. She was right. We never did. But the ripple effects were wild. The nice friend, who by this point had firmly distanced herself from my ex's circle, told me that the attorney my ex hired was her mother's friend's husband, not a real estate lawyer, a personal injury guy. He'd apparently taken the case as a favor, and after receiving my lawyer's response, told the family there was nothing further he could do, and that pursuing it would likely result in an unfavorable outcome. Translation: you have no case, and you're going to get countersued. Her mother threw a fit. Apparently told the attorney he was abandoning her daughter and that she'd find a real lawyer who isn't afraid of bullies. She did not, in fact, find another lawyer. I know because my attorney set a reminder to check for any filings against me. 6 weeks later, nothing. Meanwhile, the social media post, the one that started everything, was still up, still getting occasional comments, still painting me as some kind of monster who threw his girlfriend out over nothing. I've been ignoring it per my lawyer's advice, but it was affecting me more than I wanted to admit. People I'd met through her at parties would see me on the street and look away. A guy from her friend group messaged me saying, "You should be ashamed of yourself." One of my own co-workers saw it through some 6 degrees of separation share and asked me about it at lunch. So I did something I've been sitting on for a while. I didn't make a public post. I didn't tell my side. Instead, I sent the nice friend a single photo. No caption. No explanation. Just a wide-angle shot of my living room. The sectional, the reading nook, the 12-foot ceilings, the windows overlooking the street. The space that my ex had called so small you can barely breathe. The nice friend posted it on her own story with a caption, "For context." That's all she wrote. For context. Within a few hours, people started doing the math, comparing the angles in my ex's original post to the actual dimensions visible in that one wide shot. Someone who worked in interior design commented with rough square footage estimates based on the furniture scale. Comments started popping up on my ex's original post. Not from me, not coordinated by me, just people going, "Wait, that's the same apartment, and girl, that place is huge, what are you talking about?" She deleted the post by the end of that day. Didn't address it, didn't explain, just deleted it. The nice friend told me my ex's reaction was to throw her phone across her studio and crack the screen on the floor of her 340 square foot apartment. The replacement screen cost her $230 she didn't have, so she was using a phone with a shattered screen for 3 weeks until her next paycheck. I want to wrap this up with something honest. I don't feel triumphant. I know a lot of people reading this want me to be doing a victory lap, and I get it. The narrative is satisfying. Girl mocks boyfriend's generosity. Boyfriend removes the generosity. Girl faces reality. Clean. Tidy. Justice served. But here's what actually happened. I lost someone I cared about. Someone I thought I'd build something with. Someone whose record player I can still see a ghost of by the windows, even though it's been gone for weeks. I sit in my 2,000 square feet of exposed brick and hardwood, and sometimes it does feel too big. Not because of the square footage. Because it's quiet. The throw pillows are in a storage auction somewhere. The candle subscription got canceled. The kitchen towels are in my linen closet because I'm not going to throw out perfectly good kitchen towels. I'm not insane. She's in Queens, paying more than half her salary to live in a box. Not because I put her there, because she valued a performance of dissatisfaction over an actual life she had for free. She chose the image of deserving more over the reality of having enough. I changed my locks. I changed my number. I haven't changed my couch yet because it still has the indent from where she used to sit and read, and honestly, I should probably get a new one, but I'll do it when I'm ready. That's the whole story. No dramatic twist. No secret happy ending. Just a guy with a loft and a lesson about what happens when someone mistakes generosity for obligation. Take care of each other out there. And for the love of God, if someone is letting you live in a Manhattan loft for $140 a month, maybe don't post about how small it is.